Thank you very much, Julie. And such a shame that we can't meet face to face, but I'm delighted to join you from a little village called Hawksworth, which is near Newark-on-Trent in Nottinghamshire. And originally I was to do Courageous Conversations as a pre-conference workshop. And what I'm really pleased to be able to offer you now is just a little segment of that, taking about 10 minutes. So the screen should be coming up for everybody now. So yin and yang, being heard, deliberately chosen yin and yang because it's about us and it's also delivering the message, and it's also about very much about the receiver. Let me introduce myself first to you. And here I am in lockdown with partner and one of the daughters that you can see on the photograph there, taken in mid-March in the Canaries. I have to say, little known to us, we were on one of the last flights back out before they locked down in Spain. So we count ourselves quite fortunate there. But career-wise, I started in libraries, public libraries in Nottinghamshire in the day, and went from there into HR and learning and development, set up our own business 20 years ago, Bridgford Consultancy. And the focus of this business is very much around leadership and communication. So the being heard theme is really central to what we do. When I was asked to do it, I was thinking, well, what can we do in 10 minutes? And really, I wanted to do something that was positive, that was relevant, and that had a takeaway. So that's the aim of the next few minutes. Now, I know as an audience, you'll have many communications and there'll be a lot of experience out there in delivering different things. If I could ask you to think of just one of those that's a communication to your customers, to your team, to your clients, suppliers, etc., even your next door neighbour. Managing expectations, I'm not actually going to be covering how you give legal messages at all, not my field, and I know it's very much in your area. So there'll be protocols around that that clearly won't fit necessarily with what we're talking about. Given the current climate, and I'm particularly thinking of people returning to the workplace at the moment, there are some really key messages that we're all having to deal with. And it's very important that we both get buy-in from people, we can think about how we're going to frame this, and also anticipate objections. So that's the three areas that we'll be covering here. Nothing that's rocket science, really just a moment to reflect, sit back, think, well, who's receiving this? How will they receive it? How can I convey it in a positive way? So I'm going to start with a bit of a questionnaire, a poll. What do you see as the problem? And I'm hoping we've got enough people on the line to make this poll worthwhile. And my colleague Matt is going to run that at the moment, and we should get the answers up fairly soon. And so I was really curious to know how this was going to work out. Only 5% are saying technology problems, so that has to be a plus. I think if we were talking this through a few weeks ago, that might have been higher. Obviously, that's fundamental to being heard. Thinking about the communication channel, my main tip here would be think about your audience, think what's going to work for them, how many people, and also not just use one communication channel. The reinforcement obviously is really important. The timing can be a problem. What's right for them, not just what's right for us. And the things that I'm going to focus on is the last two today. People either don't want to hear the message, and that's come out as the strongest, 44%, or is it the way in which I convey that? So the two areas for thinking about messaging. My screen is frozen now. I can't move on to the next slide. So perhaps I could have a bit of help from Matt here. So may I have a tip from somebody as to how I move on to the next slide? Shall I just to next up here? So with apologies. Okay, so there we go. We've moved on. Before any message, it's about crystallizing. What is that message? What's the main purpose of this? And who am I delivering to? Is it to one? Is it to many? What's their experience? What's their background? What's their attitude to the message that we're going to be giving? Getting attention is really important. Just as I've probably got your attention back now with this rather lurid slide. It's not enough though, is it? Yes, it will help people to listen at the beginning. We also need to get their buy-in, whether it's compliance or whether it's actually them really wanting to do that. That would be better if they're motivated to take action. If we're simply sharing the facts of the matter, the do's and the don'ts, well, you can see the picture there and I'll put you in that position. Really what people are doing is they're thinking, what's in it for me? How will this affect me? My job, my role, my family, etc. This may be a familiar term to many on the line. Borrowed from sales, hooking your audience. So whoever I'm speaking to, it's really important, isn't it, to be talking to them rather than at them and stressing the benefits, assuming there are some benefits to them. The benefit might simply be knowing what's going to happen. That is a benefit. Acknowledging concerns also is a hook because it's talking personally to people. It's there about creating the empathy, being genuine and acknowledging concerns, whilst also being clear that we can't have a magic wand and answer everybody's concerns just like that. We will aim to as much as we can. So a good start, isn't it, to think about capturing attention, getting buy-in, but then what am I going to say and how will I say that? Let me offer you a framework here in terms of organising and preparation and then delivery what I say, with the intention still of getting this buy-in. So it's called hooks, and you can see there we've got nanogram hooks and then hooks within it as well. Something that you might think of when you're working out, well, what am I going to say? How much am I going to say? And how am I going to put it to my audience? The introduction first. So if you look at the first three bullets there, hook, overview, and objective, I would see that as the beginning piece. We've already talked about hooks, what's going to hook people. So having that there ready at the beginning, a nice juicy hook to capture them. And in a nutshell, what is this about? The overview. I'd really like to emphasize that the objective here is not the objective for the whole project. It's not the objective for the whole service. It's actually the objective for this communication. So by the end of this 30 minutes, I intend that you will be clear on, or I have got feedback from you on, or you've been able to ask questions on, whatever it is. Let's just focus on that introduction just for a moment, if we may. So you could go hook, overview, objective. And staying with my example of going back to work, it might look something like this. So I know you're concerned about return to work arrangements. This is about confirming the number of people in the office and how we can work effectively. By the end of this 30-minute consultation, my aim is that we'll have clarified organisational guidance and collected your first impressions on how this can work practically. That might work, or you might prefer to turn it around and have overview, hook, objective. It really is what works for you and is appropriate. So you can see there's a slight difference. This meeting is about numbers in the office when we return to work. I know this is something that's been concerning you, hooking them in with empathy. By the end of our 30-minute consultation, same objective. that is the introductory bit. Obviously, over to you to think how that would work for some of your messages. We're then into the meat of the thing, aren't we? The key messages. And you'll notice the rule of three here. You may have come across the cognitive rule of three, or the power of three, something that people can remember. So we'll probably remember from years back, education, education, education. A more recent one is see it, say it, sorted. We get it. The same with a three-step process, or the three main things that I'd like to deal with here. You will know what your messages are. What I find works here is really not to just talk at people, but to get involved. So to identify their issues, to explore things with them, and we're staying on theme, but going with them and showing empathy, relating to the audience as we're working through, keeping with those hooks. Keeping in mind, of course, that it's just not what we say, it's how we say it that means it's received in the manner we intend. And without going into this in huge detail, it's thinking about this may have been model. Again, it's very well known, this in the public domain. So 7% of the message that's actually received is from the words that are said. And the rest of it comes from how we express it through our body language, limited when we're virtual, and also the voice. So the pitch, the pace, the pause, the pronunciation, all of those things coming together to effectively get the emphasis across, the tone, etc. And clearly we could do loads on that. 10 minutes, not much. Coming back to my framework, so we're now at the summary point, and just a key thing here to know, to finish on the note that you wish to finish on. So that's the takeaway for them. So often inputs finish on, well, I think that's all we've got time for, thank you. Or the last comment or question, which can be a negative. So we want them to take away our message. So in our example, something like, so thank you very much for exploring this in this meeting. That's been really, really helpful. What I would like to do is talk to you all individually afterwards. So please do have any questions at that point, and then we'll come back to the next meeting to make some decisions. That's the message, the hooks. A challenge when you're virtual, however it works face-to-face, phone, even email, I think you could have a try. And finally, but not to go into, is clearly we need to be anticipating any objections that are going to come up and how we will respond, again with empathy, with clarity, and perhaps not having a slick answer to everything, because that can be a bit sort of frustrating for the people on the receiving end, but working with people to get to some workable compromises. More on that when we do Courageous Conversations next year at the BIALL conference. I'm really, really looking forward to that. And can I say good luck with your messaging? I do have an edited version of these slides that are going out. I also can send you a handout if you email me on that and handling objections. Thank you very much for that. And I believe there may be a question or two. Shall I go back to Julie?
Yes, we do have some questions in, so we'll just take a couple. Diana, would you recommend speaking to people in a group first, or start a one-to-one conversation about change?
That's a really good question, and one that often, you know, we're grappling with. Well, shall I tell everybody at once, or shall I sort of take them one by one, and then we'll have a big meeting? So no right answer, obviously, on this one. I would think it depends how important the message is to everybody, or is it simply very important to one or two people within the group, in which case perhaps have a word with them first, because they will be more alarmed or involved when you have the meeting. But generally speaking, it's avoiding the grapevine. So telling people, but then backing it up immediately with one-to-one. Does that answer the question?
And next up we have one from Ellie, probably just a consideration to get your viewpoint. She's wondering if it's not just the people don't want to hear, it's the volume of messages and sometimes it gets lost.
Yes, because you're covering so much in one go. There's the old acronym KISS, isn't there? Keep it simple and straightforward, or people have different versions of that. So as much as, you know, if we're in a leader position, as much as we can boil things down to make them manageable for the people hearing, I always think it's more important that people get it. We edit it and we give them 20% that they get and they can use, then we try and do absolutely everything at once and people are overwhelmed and overfaced. No easy answer. Thank you.